I'm Nick Altmeyer with linkinglewiscounty.com. We're here this afternoon with Lewis County Manager Ryan Piche, and we're here to preview just what's coming up this month in county government and give you a little bit of a preview for the February 4th Board of Legislators meeting, which is taking place at 5 p.m. right in the legislative chambers in the second floor of the courthouse here in Louisville. So we have a couple of things that are going on in county government. So we haven't done this in a couple months, so we just kind of wanted to start off and let people know that this is something that we try to do every month, and Ryan's always very accommodating. Sometimes just the window between when we actually get the preview of the resolutions and when the meeting actually is, it doesn't always work out scheduling wise where we can find a common time to sit down together. So sometimes it's on my end, sometimes it's on your end, but for the most part, I think we ended up with like 10 out of the 12 months last year. So
really?
That's pretty good.
All right, pretty good.
So anyway, to get started here, there are a couple of local law that are going to be proposed. So the first one we're going to talk about with public hearing is going to be on March 3rd, but the law will be introduced on Tuesday night. So this is a law regulating and permitting special events in Lewis County. So did you want to explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so I don't think it's any secret that in Lewis County we have some large road events, particularly with ATVs and snowmobiles. Of course, there's some concerts and some other big things, but that's not really what this new law is about. What we're trying to do is get a handle on events that are going to take place throughout Lewis County roadways. And the purpose of that is to make sure that we're putting together the right resources for safety, for traffic diversion, whatever it may be. Some of these events started out as kind of fundraisers or chicken barbecues. And what has happened is, Lewis County has become home to some of the largest ATV and snowmobile events in the Northeast. And so it's a nominal amount to, apply for the event permit. I think the largest cost is $50. The smallest, depending on the size of your event, it might only be like $10. So the point is not to raise money from this. It's not supposed to be a fee or a tax. It's just simply so that the county is aware of what events are happening and making sure that we are putting out the right public safety apparatus to respond to those events. And when it comes to ATVs, we have to maintain our trail system. And so a lot of these larger events, they hit the trails pretty hard, which is great. We love that in Lewis County. We want people to come ride here, but we also need to know which trails are getting hit and making sure that we're coming in and cleaning up the week after and making sure that the next weekend or throughout the rest of the season these roads and these trails are ready to ride again. So that's what it's about, just trying to get some control over that process.
And I think a big piece of it too, hearing it go through the committee process and things like that was just making sure that the county is aware that these events are actually going on, because there were a couple events that were larger events that if you don't know they're going on, it's hard to have the road signage up and take care of what's happening. So this kind of just gives you guys a little bit more oversight in the process, and if someone's having a big event. So like you said, it's not necessarily to deny events and things like that. It's just to know that they're going on and how many people are going to be there, so what kind of resources.
In Lewis County, we don't have a big concert venue like Saratoga Performing Arts or Canandaigua Performing Arts or the big amphitheater in Onondaga County. But we do have a lot of people that come here to enjoy themselves, and they do so on our trail system. And so we need to treat some of those big weekends similar to how some of these other counties are treating some of their big venues, because really that's what it's become. And it's a great thing. It's something that we work hard to promote here at the county level, but we have to make sure that it's done safely. And so we're trying to get a handle on that.
Okay. So once again, that law is going to be proposed at Tuesday night's meeting, and then the legislators will, if they decide to, they'll set a public hearing for March 3rd, and then that's when the public can make their comments on it.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And so a couple of other things that the board will be considering on Tuesday night. There are a couple resolutions for some temporary positions at the district attorney's office. So basically with some new discovery laws in place and things like that, the need came up to give them a little bit of extra help at the beginning of the year to catch up on and make sure they have everything in place for that.
So I'm sure most people have heard about some of the reforms, criminal justice reforms that came out of Albany last year. Bail reform was one, but another that doesn't get quite as much attention was discovery reform. Discovery is the process of the prosecution turning over relevant information to the defense to prosecute crimes. And New York State has severely tightened that window to 15 days that our prosecution has to turn over all the relevant information to the defense team. And so we've brought some extra people in that can help us get through the first couple months of this new reform and make sure that we don't miss a beat as we're adjusting to the new system put in place by the state.
Okay, perfect. All right. Legislators are also going to be considering a resolution. Basically, this is for the new above-ground fuel storage system over at the Highway Department. So I don't think we've talked about that too much yet. So if you kind of just wanted to fill people in on that project and what you expect of that.
Yeah, so our current fuel system dates back to the early 90s. This is the fuel system at our highway garage on East Road. And so we are looking to upgrade that simply. It's not just a county apparatus. Fire and EMS use that, refueling station. The school districts use that refueling station. The state plows use that refueling station. So this is a project that, if we don't replace some of this stuff, we won't be able to use it. So we're taking out the below ground tanks that we currently have. We're putting in some above ground tanks, similar capacity as what we currently have, just replacing that. The legislators will be voting to go into an agreement with Stantec, which is an engineering company that will help us through the bidding, design, construction engineering, construction administration part of the process. And so hopefully we'll move forward with that. It's about a $600,000 project. Hopefully we'll move forward with that in the spring of 2020.
Okay. And if my memory serves me right, I think this started maybe back last spring maybe, and the issue came up with there was some kind of EPA regulation or something that was changing. So you guys had to do some work down underground anyway, and so you kind of made this decision going forward that the system's old as it is, and if we have to do this work and put these upgrades in, why not go forward with the above ground system? So that
people,
accurate?
people in the county have probably noticed that a lot of our local gas stations have had tank projects lately, and that's because the state DC has changed some of their regulations, particularly involving the underground lines. And so, not to say that our lines are in bad shape, we think they're fine, but we've needed extra layers of protection to be installed, and so by the time you start digging and adding to an old system, we figured it's about time to jump forward to a new system anyway.
Okay. And then another project that we're looking at that the board will be looking at making some improvements to the, sorry, I can't even read my own writing here.
Dilapidated.
Right. Making some improvements over at the solid waste station. So that's a transfer site over here in Lalvo. So kind of doing an upgrade over there with the compactor and changing to the trucks.
Yeah, so right now, if anyone's familiar with our current solid waste system, commercial and residential dump on the same floor. They get pushed into a compactor, and then we take 40 or 60 yard compacted boxes to Rodman to the landfill. Compactors and those compactor boxes is a lot of metal on metal. It's a lot of electricity to compound those each of those loads. So what a lot of places have done, and what we're looking to do, is go to 100 yard instead of 60, 100 yard open top system. So no compaction. You just dump on the tipping floor. We push it into an open yard, open top container, and we send it right to Rodman. So, but in order to do that, we have to update some aspects of the facility because it wasn't designed to load 100 yard boxes. It was only designed to load 60 yard boxes. So those are the things that we're going to have to work on.
Okay. And so this resolution would actually just kind of get some engineering plans and things like that it's not actually deciding to move forward with the project. It's just
Yep.
kind of getting some plans to look at, and I think it mentioned a couple different options to choose from.
Yeah, this Barton and LaJudas is just going to help us work through some of the options. We could renovate some of our existing facilities. We currently mix commercial and residential drop-off, which is not the safest way to do things. You know, having a pickup truck come in next to a commercial commercial hauler that's backing up. I
Right.
mean, there might be some other advantages to just building a separate building. So we're going to look at those options. We're going to game out the budgets for each and hopefully come to some conclusions at some point this year.
Okay. And although there are no actual public hearings scheduled for Tuesday night's meeting, we have seen some things out there that there is going to be a presentation to address the board to make Lewis County a Second Amendment sanctuary. So it looks like some people are going to be turning out for that. So did you have any comment on that, or?
Not on the policy. That'll be something that the legislature will have to consider. But I will say that, of course, we welcome any of our citizen groups to attend our board meetings. I mean, this is what we're here for. It's democracy in action. So we ask that if you attend, just make sure you follow our procedures for privilege of the floor. Sign the clipboard, state your name and address, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes, especially if we're going to try to move through quite a few people who'd like to speak.
Right.
But no, that's more people are more than welcome to come.
Perfect. And so I guess the last topic for today is you spent a good portion of the beginning part of the week at the NYSAC conference. So for people that don't know, that's the New York State Associations of County, which is kind of like a just an advocacy group of all the counties. And so each year, I think a couple times a year, you know, all the county executives get together and kind of work through some issues and what's going on. I know it's always a popular one after the budget comes out. So did you just want to talk a little bit about your experience this week and some of the big topics that came up?
Sure. So, we always meet in Albany the week after the governor's executive budget proposal because there's always plenty to talk about and plenty to do in terms of state advocacy that week. A few things that came out in the governor's budget that are of grave concern to counties, particularly changes to the Medicaid structure. A little bit of history. Medicaid in New York State, first of all, county governments in New York State are the only localities in the whole United States that are responsible for a portion of Medicaid payments. So when you get your property taxes in the mail, you're paying for part of the state's Medicaid bill. In most states, the state government handles the program, administers the program, and pays for the program with its taxes and its budget. Not in New York State. We pay for part of it through the county budget. Well, what the state is saying is that they're going to start asking us to pay even more. And they have, as most people have probably read, a $4 billion budget gap. Two of that is the responsibility of Medicaid. They have a $2.6 billion Medicaid gap. And what the governor's executive budget has said is that county governments are going to have to start picking up more of that tab. And that is something that is absolutely going to impact property taxpayers in Lewis County. And something that we really don't have a lot of say in. Part of the governor's comments were that counties are responsible for some of this runaway spending, so we have to pick up more of the bill. Well, that couldn't possibly be further from the truth. We do not determine any eligibility. The state sets all the eligibility guidelines. In fact, 66%, 2/3 of people that are on Medicaid in Lewis County don't even come through DSS. They do it through the online exchange, New York State of Help. We are only dealing with the disabled applications and folks that aren't capable of doing the applications themselves, which is less than 1/3 of applications. So the governor's rhetoric on this is frankly insulting to counties, and it's going to be something that's going to cost the taxpayers of Lewis County quite a bit over the next few years if we don't fight back and get a handle on some of these costs. So that would be the number one issue.
Do you have any Is it too early to say, or do you have any estimates on what kind of costs we could be looking at as a county, or?
I would say it's a little bit too early to say because the state has put out about 3 different advisories on this, and none of them match. So all the counties are kind of trying to figure out what comes next and how exactly we calculate some of the changes that the governor is proposing. So it's a little too early to say.
But it could be significant.
But well, let's put it this way. If you've got a $2.6 billion budget gap and you're asking the counties to pay more, how is that going to look, right? It's going to come down on the taxpayers in the county.
Right.
So we will have some estimates soon, but we don't have any numbers yet.
Okay. And was there anything else of interest that came out of the conference?
Oh gosh, yeah. There's
I'm sure there's lots of things, but
the state's budget has all kinds of stuff in it that we're concerned about. Changes to the early intervention program that is run through public health, changes through the 730 diagnosis program that is run by community services. There's a lot of, I like to call it death by 1,000 cuts, right? So nothing besides Medicaid that is going to cause us to hemorrhage, but a lot of little things that year after year after year add up. And so that is, what we are concerned about, and understanding the state's expectations so that we can properly budget and prepare, when it comes time for our budget.
As an organization, has NISAC come out with any position on like the bail and discovery reform? Have you guys talked about any?
Bail and discovery reform, I haven't heard of anything in particular. NISAC represents all of the New York State counties. So Lewis County leans a little more conservative. There's other counties that don't.
Right.
So some of these issues, Medicaid is cut and dry. That hurts everyone.
All counties,
And, all counties of all ideological spectrum, can pretty much agree that this is a bad thing. But the bail and the discovery, some of that stuff, the more you look into it, you can find some reasoning. And so they haven't taken too hard of, too much of a harsh position on those topics. I think everybody with bail reform would like to see some changes. If they just narrowed the list of who is bail eligible, I think that would solve a lot of the problems.
Right.
Discovery is a whole nother, a whole issue within itself.
Right.
That the District Attorneys Association and some of the folks that are the Sheriff's Association that are more into the weeds on criminal justice and prosecution. They've had some more detailed proposals, but yeah.
Okay.
But I would expect, some of the things out of the conference. I mean, we talked about it last year at this time, but the legalization of, or I would say the legalization of recreational marijuana. That's something that the governor's budget is planning on that revenue. So if he's planning on the revenue, it's likely that he's going to ask the legislature to act on that. So that might be something that we'll have to keep an eye on. So there's plenty going on in Albany.
All right. So I guess unless you had anything else to add to wrap things up, pretty much we have the board will be meeting on February 4th right here at the courthouse in Lalvo, second floor. Meeting starts at 5. I know there's been some talk. We just did the interview the other day with Sheriff and Patrick Morse on the Second Amendment sanctuary proposal. So we are expecting, they're expecting some people to come out. So just keep in mind that if you are planning to attend on either side of that issue, that you do have to make it through security and things like that. So meeting starts right at 5. So Ryan, we appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, anytime.
Yeah,
of course.
We'll see you next month.
Okay.